Okay, so hi everyone. I hope you enjoyed Psalms, and now we are going on to Proverbs. And yes, in Psalms I did actually reference a lot of scripture and read a lot of scripture, where in Proverbs I'm actually basically going to do the opposite. I'm not going to reference so many scriptures, because basically what I did was, when I was going through Proverbs, I saw that a lot of the things in Proverbs actually repeat. So I basically then made like a summary of all of the main themes that are in Proverbs, and then basically summarized all of the things that Solomon, who wrote Proverbs, then says about these things, so that we don't go through all of the redundancy, because it's quite a lot. So I would rather just focus on like the main point, and then where it repeats, I like basically took it out, and just to, for time's sake, to keep it short and compact, but still highlight all of the themes and the things that Solomon is saying. So yeah. So the first thing that I want to highlight is the purpose of Proverbs, and we find this in Proverbs 1, verse 2 to 5. So I'm going to read that, where it says, so Proverbs was written that the people may know skillful and godly wisdom and instruction, discern and comprehend the words of understanding and insight, receive instruction in wise dealing and the discipline of the wise, thoughtfulness, righteousness, justice, and integrity, that prudence may be given to the simple, and knowledge, discretion, and discerning to the youth. The wise also will hear and increase in learning, and the person of understanding will acquire skill and attain a sound counsel, so that he may be able to steer his course rightly. And just this course of life, that we can actually live it rightly. So it's basically saying, the people who do not have skillful and godly wisdom will receive it through the Proverbs, and then those who already have it will actually just increase in learning. Alright, so we can just look at some of the themes that are in Proverbs. So the first one is like, what is wisdom? And we continuously throughout Proverbs get this definition of, or description of, what wisdom is. So I'm basically just going to run through the entire definition of all the different definitions that are given. So it is, the first one is, the reverent and worshipful fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I think this is very important, because here it says that the reverent and worshipful fear is the beginning of wisdom. And if someone does not even have any regard for God, or thinks that God doesn't exist, or doesn't believe in him, then obviously he would not be acting wisely. He would not be living a life that is right, because he doesn't even have any regard for God. And so firstly, he doesn't have like any reference to what is right or not. And then also secondly, he doesn't feel like he's going to have any consequences to his actions, because there is no God. So this is very important, that if someone doesn't even believe in God, then obviously for them to act wisely, they would firstly have no wisdom, because they have no reference of what is wisdom, and they wouldn't have a reason to live wisely. So I think this is important. So we that acknowledge that God exists and we believe in him will then be able to act wisely, because we can ask him for wisdom, for that reference, to live right, and we will be wanting to live right to actually please him. So I think that's an important point of like what wisdom is. It's like firstly acknowledging that God is God, and then receiving wisdom from him and actually living it out. Okay, so then a further description of what wisdom is. It says, it is better than the gaining of silver, and the profit of it is better than fine gold. It is more precious than rubies, and nothing you can wish for can compare. It is intelligent discernment, it is comprehension, it is interpretation of spiritual matters, it is prudence, knowledge, discretion, and it is the hatred of evil, pride, arrogance, the evil way, and the perverted and twisted speech. So this is also amazing. Wisdom is not only doing what is right, it's also hating what is wrong. So this is also really, really amazing. And it's also the counsel and sound knowledge. It is understanding. It is might and power. And then it says, when you have wisdom beside you, it will be your master and the director of your work. When you have skillful and godly wisdom, it will be pleasure and relaxation to you, because you have understanding. And basically here it gives like the opposite. It says that the wicked they basically find pleasure in doing wickedness, but the person who has wisdom find pleasure in just having this understanding and having wisdom. So and then also wisdom is a comprehensive insight into the ways and purposes of God, which is really actually amazing. And then wisdom is also, if it rests in your mind and heart, you will have understanding. So this is basically what wisdom is. And then also we find a lot of times where Solomon basically says that wisdom leads to life and is life, but wickedness leads to death and is death. So there's two contradicting ideas, but I'm basically just going to touch on wisdom being life. So he says that wisdom is life to those who find it, healing and health to all their flesh. So we basically see that wisdom is life for your spirit, wisdom is life for your mind, and even for your flesh. So as we usually spoke about us being 3 in 1, basically saying that wisdom is life to our whole being, all 3 in 1, even to our flesh, because if you live right and you act wisely, even physically you will be healthy. So that's also very interesting. And then the whole teaching of the law is light, and the reproofs and disciplines of it is a way to life. So basically, if we listen to the wisdom and the reproofs of the law, or just wisdom, then ultimately all of that will be leading us to life. And then he says, understanding is a wellspring of life. And then he who heeds to instruction and correction is not only himself in the way of life, but also is a way of life for others. And this is also important. If we have wisdom, we can actually give other people wisdom. And we also see this when we did Kings and Chronicles, where Solomon has this wisdom, and then the Queen of Sheba comes all the way from Sheba to visit him and ask for his wisdom. So the same thing, if we have wisdom, people will be drawn to that wisdom and understanding and want some of that and ask us for advice, and then we will be able to give them this godly advice. So that's also very amazing. Okay, and then life is in the way of the righteous, moral and spiritual rectitude in every area and relation. So here it basically gives a definition for righteousness. It's moral and spiritual rectitude in every area and relation. So again, like, it's almost putting it on the next level. Like, righteousness is like in every area of your life, then you are righteous. So it basically makes it next level. It puts a whole new definition on it, where we just think righteousness, doing right, but actually living righteous in every area of your life. And then he who earnestly seeks after and craves righteousness, mercy, and loving kindness will find life in addition to that righteousness. And here another definition for righteousness. It's the uprightness and right standing with God. And then also you will receive honor. So basically when it says when you seek after wisdom, you will get all of these other things. Righteousness, mercy, loving kindness, honor, life, all of that. So this is really actually amazing. And then it talks extremely a lot about remembering the teaching of your parents. And basically, there's like 31 chapters. I think 20 out of the 31 at least have one verse talking about remembering what your parents have taught you and actually listening to it and remembering it, giving it to your children, and so on and so on, and pleasing your parents by being wise. So I'm just going to highlight the one that stood out for me the most. But there are many, many more. So in Proverbs 7 verse 1, it says, "My son, keep my words, lay up within you my commandments, for use when needed, and treasure them. Keep my commandments and live, and keep my law and teaching as the apple, the pupil of your eye, and bind them on your fingers and write them on the tablet of your heart." So this is really amazing. Like, the things that our parents have taught us, we need to see them as treasures, and that we must keep them and use them, actually apply them to our lives. And then we must also, again, teach our children those same things. And we should basically keep it in our hearts and do them. Okay, and then there's like a lot of things where it says it gives like this juxtaposition all of the time. It's like the wicked will this and the righteous will this, and the fool does this and the wise does this. So it like literally juxtaposes these two ideas throughout the whole Proverbs. So basically what I've done here is I've basically made a list of what your life will be like if you do not take godly wisdom, and then what will your life be like if you take godly wisdom. And then I'm just going to run through a few more of these like juxtaposing ideas of what wisdom and foolishness, how they contradict each other. And you can see like how your life will be is like exact opposite if you either take wisdom or not. So this is quite interesting. So what your life will be like if you do not take wisdom. You will eat the way they eat. So here he continues to talk about they, referring to the wicked or the foolish, not taking wisdom. Okay, so they eat of the fruit of their own way. They cannot sleep unless they have caused trouble or vexation or caused someone to fall. They eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They go about in perverse, contrary and a wayward mouth. They willfully contrary in their hearts, and they devise trouble, vexation, and evil continuously. So like even in their heart, they willfully decide to do what's contrary to what is right, and then with that they devise the trouble and vexation and evil. And it says that upon him shall the curses or weight of calamity come suddenly, and suddenly he will be broken. So that's quite a hectic statement, but basically saying that it's not good to refuse to take wisdom. And so now we get to the good part, what your life will be like if you take a wisdom. And in Proverbs 2, it basically gives like a whole list of like what your life will be like when you take wisdom and have wisdom in your heart, like in a few verses. And then for the rest of Proverbs, it elaborates quite a lot on those basic things. So I'm just going to basically talk about that and then elaborate a bit more. So in Proverbs 2 verse 10 to 21, it says, "For skillful and godly wisdom shall enter into your heart, and knowledge shall be pleasant to you. Discretion shall watch over you, understanding shall keep you, to deliver you from the way of the evil and evil men, from men who speak perverse things and are liars, men who forsake the path of righteousness to walk in the way of darkness, to deliver you from the alien woman, from the outsider with her flattering words." And here it's quite important that I mention that also in Proverbs he continuously compares the wisdom to like a righteous and good woman, and then he compares foolishness or wickedness to this loose woman or a prostitute, and basically comparing this image of a man having to choose between the two, and continuously saying stay away from the loose woman and choose the good woman, the righteous woman, and then saying choose wisdom. So here he's saying that when you are wise, you will be delivered from from wickedness, basically. And then that you may walk in the way of good men, and keep to the path of the consistently righteous, the upright and in right standing with God. And this is also a thing that continuously occurs. It says consistently righteous or uncompromisingly righteous. And this is also important. It's not only being righteous, it's like being uncompromisingly righteous. Again, it elevates it to the next level. And that's actually really amazing. When we live righteous, we should be uncompromising in the right things that we do. Not even give in to a little bit of wickedness or evilness or what is wrong. Being completely righteous. Okay. And then the upright shall dwell in the land, and the man of integrity, blameless and complete in God's sight, will remain in it. So this refers back to the Israelites basically saying the righteous will stay in the promised land. But how this is applicable for us, you can basically say that the one who is righteous will receive the promises of God and will remain in that promises. Okay, and then there's a further description throughout the whole of Proverbs where it says the wise will dwell securely and in confident trust, and shall be quiet without fear or dread of evil. And you will understand and reverently and worshipfully fear the Lord, and find knowledge from God. For God gives skillful and godly wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. So when we take this wisdom, we get this knowledge and understanding that is coming from God. Okay? And then, this is also a very nice part. It says, so you shall find favor, good understanding, and high esteem in the sight or judgment of God and man. So when you have wisdom, not only will you be like in high esteem or be honored by God, you will also be honored by man because they see that you have wisdom. And then it says this important part. I think it's quite a popular scripture, but I'm just going to read it for everyone. It says, lean on, trust in, and be confident in the Lord with all of your heart and mind, and do not rely on your own insights and understanding. In all of your ways, recognize and acknowledge him, and he will direct and make straight and plain your paths. So basically saying, whenever we go through life, we shouldn't be confident in what we know or lean on our own knowledge, but we should actually be trusting in God for wisdom and knowledge, and recognize him and acknowledge him in all that we do, and then whatever we do will be successful, and it will our lives will be like a straight and plain path. Okay, and it says that the wise will walk securely and have confident trust in God, and they shall not dash their foot or stumble in their life. When they lie down, they shall not be afraid. Their sleep shall be sweet. They shall not be afraid of sudden terror or panic. So again, just like sleep and not being afraid of the sudden terror is exactly the opposite of what we just spoke about with the wicked. The Lord shall be your confidence, firm and strong, and shall keep your foot from being caught in any trap. The wise shall inherit glory and honor and goodness. Wisdom will keep, defend, protect, and guard you. Your days shall be multiplied, and the years of your life shall be increased. And the name of the Lord is a strong tower, and the consistently righteous man runs into it and is safe. And this is just the strong tower. It was basically when they had wars, they would build these towers or a fortress or a stronghold. And basically saying that the name of the Lord for us is our safe space. And we can just run to him and be safe, and he will protect us against any evil that comes. Okay, and then I just want to highlight a few other things that he basically contradicts, like how the righteous and the wicked will live. Okay, so the righteous, the memory of the uncompromisingly righteous is a blessing, but the name of the wicked shall rot, which I found quite strange, but yeah. So basically saying that if you are righteous and you live right, people will remember you for that you were one of the most righteous people. Even King David, he was a righteous king, and so many people even today know about him, speak about him, and so on. And then he who walks uprightly walks securely, but he who takes a crooked way shall be found out and punished. The wise men store up knowledge in mind and heart. The mouth of the foolish is a present destruction. Okay, the tongue of those who are upright and in right standing with God are as choice silver. The mind of those who are wicked and out of harmony with God are of little value. And this again is very important. Like when, again, going back to that thing of when you have wisdom and you act, then you will actually have something to say that is of value and that other people can apply to their lives and listen to and so on. Where if you don't have wisdom, whatever you say is of very little value to anyone. Okay. And then when the whirlwind passes, the righteous have an everlasting foundation, and the wicked are no more. The lips of the uncompromisingly righteous know and therefore utter what is acceptable. The mouth of the wicked knows and therefore speaks only what is obstinately willful and contrary. And this is a very interesting verse for me, because it says that the lips of the righteous, they know, and then they utter what is acceptable. And then it says the mouth of the wicked knows, and then willfully speaks exactly contrary. So this is interesting. So basically, the foolish, they know what is right, and then they decide to speak or do exactly what is opposite. And therefore, God is basically saying, this is foolish. If you know what is right and you do the opposite, that is foolishness, that is wickedness. Where you should be knowing what is right and then acting upon that. Okay, and then it says, sorry, let me just go back. he who listens to counsel is wise, and the way of the fool is right in his own eyes. And this is also a theme that also continues throughout and is repeated a few times, where he says the fool does right in his own eyes. And just coming back to that initial verse that I read about acknowledging God is the beginning of wisdom. And here it says that the fool does what is right in his own eyes, basically saying he has no regard for God. He is his own God, and he decides for himself what is right or wrong, because he has no reference or standard to which to measure what is right and wrong. Because he doesn't believe in God. So he just does what is right in his own eyes, and he doesn't listen to what other people tell him what is wise. Okay, and then this is also a very nice one. It says, no actual evil, misfortune, or calamity shall come upon the righteous, but the wicked shall be filled with evil, misfortune, and calamity. So when you are wise, it will go well with you, and no actual bad things will happen. Okay, and then he who reverently fears and respects the command of God is rewarded. And whoever despises the word and counsel of God brings destruction upon himself. And this is also an important thing that we spoke about a few weeks ago, of many times we suffer consequences and then of our own choices, but then we actually are blaming God for allowing something to happen in our lives. But that's exactly that. It's like when we do bad things, we almost like bring destruction upon ourselves. It sounds drastic, but basically saying we have to then carry these consequences. God has nothing to do with it. And but when we then listen to God, he rewards us for our good deeds. So we should rather be doing what is right. Okay, and then he speaks a lot about how to treat other people. So I'm just going to run through a short list of a few things that he says then how we should treat other people. So he says, let not mercy and kindness and truth forsake you. And then he actually, so the Amplified gives in brackets basically a definition for kindness and truth. So he says, for kindness, shutting out all hatred and selfishness. Again, putting kindness to the next level. So not only treating someone kindly, like we think, but actually shutting out all hatred and all selfishness. That is true kindness. So that's really amazing. And then even with truth, he says, shutting out all deliberate hypocrisy or falsehood. So again, not just speaking the truth, but actually next level, like shutting out all hypocrisy and all falsehood. And that is how we should treat other people. So when we treat them with kindness and truth and mercy, this is how it should be done. So again, it takes it to the next level, if I can say it like that. Okay. And then it says, contend not with a man for no reason. Do not belittle or despise your neighbor. Be merciful, kind, and generous, because your deeds will then return to bless you again. And then, as we said now, what is that mercy, kindness, truth, generous? It is with like, it's almost like he's saying you have to do it wholeheartedly. You can't just do it halfway. You have to put in everything and completely treat someone in mercy, kindness, and truth. Okay. And then, anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but an encouraging word makes it glad. So when we see that someone is a bit anxious or something is weighing them down, we can give them an encouraging word and that will make them glad. Okay. And then he who oppresses the poor reproaches, mocks, and insults his maker. But he who is kind and merciful to the needy honors him, being God. So when someone is like, and doesn't respect or treat the poor with kindness, he's basically insulting God or dishonoring God. But then when we treat the poor people with mercy and kindness, we're actually honoring God. So it has nothing to do with the person even, but it actually has something to do with, it's between you and God, what you do to other people. Whether you are treating them with kindness and honoring God, or not treating them with kindness and then dishonoring God. Okay. And then he who covers and forgives an offense seeks love, but he who repeats or harps on a matter separates even close friends. So we just need to let go and forgive and let love continue between people. So do not say, I will repay evil with evil, but wait expectantly for the Lord, for he will rescue you. And we even saw this with David when he wanted to take revenge on Abigail's husband. I can't remember his name now, but he wanted to take revenge on him, and then Abigail basically stopped him, and then David says, "Thank you, because you have stopped me from taking revenge and basically sinning against the Lord." So also here it says that we shouldn't be taking revenge. We should just leave it for God to sort out, and He will rescue us. Okay, and then rejoice not when your enemy falls. Hard as that might be, we need to do that. And then to discriminate and show partiality or having a respect of persons or judging people is not good. And the words of a whisperer or slanderer are like a dainty morsel of words of sport to some, but to others are like deadly wounds, and they go down into the innermost part of the body or into the victim's nature. So this is also a very interesting one for me, because basically saying that when you like whisper words and you slander and you like gossip or skinner, then for you it might be a fat joke, but for someone else that might be something that is really harming them, and it says like deadly wounds that is going into their innermost body. So that is actually quite serious, where we often make jokes about people. Actually, to them, it might be very, very hurtful. Okay. And then he also gives a lot of advice about what friends to choose. So he says, a friend loves at all times as is a brother. So he's basically saying that a good friend must be like a brother. Right? And it says, the man of many friends, a friend to all of the world, will prove himself a bad friend, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So again, basically saying that you can have many, many, many friends, but none of them are really your friend. Or you can just have one true friend, and that is actually so much better, to just have that one true friend that is even closer than your brother, than having many, many friends who aren't even really your friends. So yeah. And then make no friendship with a man who is given to anger, or who is... Okay, sorry, let me just restart that. Make no friendship with a man who is given to anger, and with a wrathful man do not associate, lest you learn his ways and give yourself into a snare. So basically saying, if someone is like always losing their temper and things like that, they don't make a good friend, and we shouldn't be friends with them, because then we might also start doing the same. And it doesn't even necessarily only mean things like being angry and so on. It can be anything, because he says, lest you learn his ways. And there he doesn't specifically say which ways. So even all of the ways, like whatever your friends do, you might also learn their ways and do the same. So you should be sure that your friends are doing good things, and that you learn their good ways and then become better. But if you have bad friends, you will learn their bad ways and not be good any longer. Okay. And then it says, oil and perfume rejoice the heart, so does the sweetness of a friend's counsel that comes into the heart. So when you go to counsel from your friends, do they actually give you counsel that comes from their heart, or do you just like brush you off and not really help you with anything? And then the same, like, what kind of friend are you? When someone asks you for advice, do you actually give godly counsel from your heart, or do you just brush it off and let it go? Okay, and then it says, iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. So, again, coming back to that thing of what your friends do that influences you, and what you do can influence your friends. And therefore, you should have friends that have the same beliefs, the same moral standing, the same standards, the same ideas about life, the same like vision, the same, everything. So that you basically both are iron, both are strong people, both are believers, both are passionate about Christ, and so on and so on, so that your friendship would actually be sharpening each other and actually improving each other and not breaking each other down. So like one person in the friendship shouldn't be something like wood, because then the iron will be actually just harming the wood and not improving it. Okay, so we should have friends that are like similar to us with beliefs and standards and so on, so that we can be improved by our friends and also improve our friends, if that makes sense. Or building each other up and making each other better people, better believers, better Christians. Okay. And then he also gives a lot of financial advice, which is quite interesting. So he says, honor the Lord with your capital and sufficiency from righteous labors and the first fruit of your income. So shall your storage places be filled with plenty, and your vats shall overflow with new wine. So here basically he's saying you should tithe, and then when you tithe, God will be blessing you with overflow and plenty. Okay. Then he says, riches provide no security in the day of wrath and judgment, but righteousness delivers from death. So it doesn't help you like the richest person on earth, but you don't like believe in God and have righteousness and wisdom. Then he also says, he who hates suretyship is secure from its penalties. So he is basically saying, do not ever sign surety for someone else, for loans or anything, because if that person then stops paying, then obviously the bank comes to you because you signed the surety. So the Bible is basically saying, do not sign surety for anyone, so that you don't fall under the penalties that is actually because of they are failing to make the payments or whatever. Okay, and then one man considers himself rich, yet has nothing, and another man considers himself poor, yet has great riches. So this is again, someone who might be rich and have a lot of money, might not have health or family or a friend. So those things that are not like riches in terms of money actually make you rich. If you have health and a family and friends and people who care about you and a wife and children and so on and so on, that is actually things that make you rich and not money. So and then he says, better is a poor man who walks in integrity than a rich man who is perverse in his speech. Okay. And then he says, weary not yourself to be rich, cease from your own human wisdom. Will you set your eyes upon wealth, then suddenly is gone. For riches certainly make themselves wings, like an eagle that flies towards the heavens. So he's basically saying here that if you strive to be rich your whole life, it can all be gone in an instant. So rather not then waste your time trying to be rich, because it can all be gone in a second. So rather trust in God and live righteously and wisely and doing what is right. And then he speaks quite a lot about things like pride, humility, anger, envy, jealousy, impatience, and so on. So I'm just going to touch on a few of them. It says, so for pride, we see it says, when swelling and pride comes, then emptiness and shame come also. By pride and insolence comes only contention. Everyone proud and arrogant is, his heart is disgusting, hateful, and exceedingly offensive to the Lord. So, again, like God doesn't want us to be prideful and to think of ourselves more than other people. We should rather be humble, and then God will honor us for that. So, we will see that a bit later as well. And it says, pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit comes before a fall. And haughtiness comes before disaster, but humility before honor. So, God first wants to see that we are humble, and then He will give us honor. Otherwise, if you're prideful, honor will just only make you more proud. So then you might not receive honor. But if you are humble, then that honor will be fine. Okay, and then also it says, for anger, envy, and jealousy, it says, he who is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who is hasty in spirit exposes and exalts his folly. So it's basically saying it is just folly to be angry and make a big fuss and just create a big fight. Rather just be slow to anger, have understanding, and just let whatever's happening just resolve itself. And then a calm and understanding mind and heart are like life and health to the body, but envy, jealousy, and wrath are like rottenness to the bones. So again, as we saw, like wisdom is health in all three of the areas of your life, like spirit, soul, and body. Here he says it again, but then he also says that the opposite, envy, jealousy, and so on, is basically bad for your body and your soul and your spirit. Okay, and then he says, a hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but one who is slow to anger, resolves contention. So we should rather be slow to anger. Alright, and then he says, for humility, the reward of humility and the reverent and worshipful fear of the Lord is riches and honor and life. So we should definitely rather be humble than prideful. And then he also gives advice for marriage and children. And he says, confine yourself to your own wife, and a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So basically saying, how are you going about what God has given you? How are you managing it? Are you wasting it, or actually are you managing it in such a way that your children's children will even be benefiting from it? And then he says, he who finds a true wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. The righteous man walks in his integrity. Blessed, happy, fortunate, and enviable are his children after him. So again, if you live righteously and you teach that to your children, you will be blessed and your children will be blessed. Okay? And he says, train up a child in the way that he should go, so that when he is old, he will not depart from it. And then we see in Proverbs 31, this whole description of the Proverbs 31 woman. And it's just an amazing passage of saying how a woman should be in her family and caring for them and praying for them, and basically good advice for being a wife and a mother. So I would encourage you all to go and read that. Alright, and then he also talks a lot about the heart, because that's an important part. So he says, keep and guard your heart with all vigilance, and above all you guard, for out of it flows the springs of life. So we need to guard our hearts. What do we allow into our hearts, and how does things get into our hearts? It's through the things that we see and things that we hear and so on. So we need to watch what we are watching and what we are hearing, and because that is going to then influence the condition of our hearts, and through that, how we live our lives is also going to be influenced. Okay, and then he says, a glad heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken. So again, if someone has looks down, if we have a cheerful heart, we can make them glad again, and by sharing the joy with them. And then he says, all the days of the desponding and afflicted are made evil by anxious thoughts and forebodings, but he who has a glad heart has a continuous feast regardless of the circumstances. So this is a really amazing scripture, because he's basically saying that whatever is going on around you, even if it is affliction and anxious thoughts and everything else, then those who have joy in their heart and have wisdom in their heart can have a continuous feast in their hearts regardless of how bad the circumstances is. So that's really, really amazing. And then it says, the wise in heart are called prudent, understanding, and knowing, and winsome speech increases learning, both in the speaker and the listener. So when we have a wise heart, we can share it, and then we can learn more and teach others. And then it says, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs and tries the heart. So again, coming back to that thing of people thinking what they are doing is right because they have no regard for God, but actually he does try our hearts, and by that he measures whether we are actually right or not. So then he also says, for as he thinks in his heart, so he is. So coming back to the thing of whatever's in your heart, that is going to be flowing out into your life, and that's going to be the way that you are going to live your life. And then there's a lot of other topics that he does cover that don't repeat as much, but you can still, if you want to, go and read more about that. So he speaks a lot about the tongue. I think I can just mention one of the most important scriptures about the tongue. It says that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they who indulge in it shall eat the fruit of it. Sorry about that. Okay, so, but that's basically the tongue of whatever you are speaking out is basically showing what is in your heart, and what is in your heart you will also then be living out. So it's all is connected. So what is in your heart, you will be doing and speaking. So we need to make sure that what is in our hearts are right, so that we speak and do what is right. Okay, and then he also speaks a lot about a false witness. He speaks about speaking wisdom to a fool or a wicked person can sometimes be folly, because they don't even want to listen. And we continuously just speak and they don't even care. And then he also talks about the wicked willfully shedding blood. He also talks about if a king is wicked, the people under him will suffer. And then he also talks about wisdom being personified as a good woman and wickedness as a loose woman. So you can just go and read some of the attributes of these two women that he uses as like personification. And then just a few interesting things in closing. In Proverbs 25, we see that that is a proverb of Solomon which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, has copied. So that's basically just that document that Hezekiah had. And you can see like most of it, it's talking about like governmental advice or how the king should rule his people. And then we can actually now understand why Hezekiah, when we did Kings, was such an amazing king, and how come he then turned Judah around back to God. Is because he listened to wisdom. He had wisdom in his heart and mind that he got from the Proverbs of Solomon, and he applied it to his life, and him and his whole kingdom was prosperous, and it went really well in Judah while Hezekiah was king. So here we can actually see why Hezekiah was a great king, is he listened to wisdom, and so should we. Okay, so that was just like my last interesting point. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed Psalms and Proverbs. And yeah, we hope to see you all in the Zoom session tomorrow. And yeah, if you share this message with people, you feel free to do so. And yeah, if you want to be part of the Zoom session, please let us know. Even if you have any other questions or prayer requests, please let us know. And yeah, then we will see you all tomorrow. Can't wait. Hope you guys have a good afternoon. And yeah.